everyone. And this is the model question paper number 6. The first question is, while ordinances can serve a purpose in certain exceptional circumstances, they should not become a routine substitute for the legislative process. Analyze. This question will be from GS paper 2, need to be written within 250 words. So, ordinance. In a parliamentary democracy like India, the ordinance promulgation power is supposed to be used as an exception, but not as a matter of course. Means this is the this is the power which will be used only when some another option is not there, only when there is an exception like emergency. So the constitutional scheme exists to ensure accountability of the political executive to the elected legislature. Now, the President of India exercise the power under article, which article? You know that? It prelims karone noholu. Any কিছুমান article we have to know, like the here in this case, article 123 of the Constitution. Okay. Promulgate the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Ordinance Act 2023. Now, the ordinance negates a constitutional bench judgment of SC and that both services under the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi. You know, few days back, this was in news. That's why this question is supposed to be important for the upcoming Apsc exams. So you first of all, under article 120, this power is there. And then the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Ordinance 2023, and it negates a constitutional bench judgment of the SC that brought services under the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi. Now, ordinance making in India, as we have already said, Article 123 in Union level and Article 213, that is 213 of the Constitution in state level. So 123 and 213 related to ordinance making. This state that an ordinance may be promulgated to meet a certain circumstance, but must be laid before the legislature in question and will expire within 6 weeks of the legislature being convened. So this will be this means ordinance will be expired within 6 weeks of the legislature being convened. Then an ordinance is thus by definition limited in time and can cease to have effect even earlier if the legislature passes a resolution disapproving the ordinance. Suppose tar agote jodi parliamentot enuka eta resolution pass hoy jay jito ordinance to disapprove kori die tetiao etu ki hoy jabo ইয়াৰ আৰু এক্সিস্টেন্স নাইকিয়া হৈ যাব। সো হেতু কাৰণে কোৱা হৈছে অৰ্ডিনেন্স টু কি হয় লিমিটেড টাইমৰ কাৰণে থাকে আৰু ইয়াৰ এফেক্ট সময়তকৈ আগতে সময়টো কি দিছিল আমি 6 উইকস অফ টাইম ৰাইট তাৰ আগতেও সিজ হ'ব পাৰে। Now, ordinance to misuse of ordinance of making power, both misuse kora hoy, misuse of ordinance making power. The very nature of the ordinance might mean that a frequent resort to its only self-defeating, excessively used. Following the washout of the second half of the budget session, 3 ordinances have recently been promulgated by the President. First was Criminal Law Amendment Ordinance Act 2018. Criminal Law Amendment Ordinance 2018, then Fugitive Economic Offender Ordinance 2018, amendments to the Commercial Courts, Commercial Division, and Commercial Appellate Divisions of High Courts Act 2015, hence Commercial Courts Act. So they were made through an ordinance. See how many means different ordinance been passed during this session. So ordinance are excessively used. Then misuse of ordinance power has been questioned. Supreme Court acted on concerns about the manner in which the ordinance promulgating power has been used at the state level. First, in limiting the manner in which the ordinances may be re-promulgated, and second, ensuring that ordinances cease to be in effect if they are not placed before the legislature. So this to be ensured without imposing any substantive limits on when an ordinance may be promulgated. The Supreme Court has restrained the government's ordinance making power through somewhat belatedly. Now, self-limitating validity and legality of actions taken on the basis of an ordinance will be in limbo unless subsequent legislation is passed at the same time, passed to the same effect by the legislature. So this is self-limitating, means if one legislation is passed with the same thing or the same effect, then it is okay. Otherwise, it will be in limbo only. Now, overuse of ordinance goes fundamentally against two core tenets of the rule of law. What are they? Stability and consistency. So if overuses of ordinance done, then it will be against rule of law with respect to stability and consistency. Self-defeating due to the absence of parliamentary scrutiny and feedback. Governments may favor the ordinance route because it makes for good optics or help them to avoid difficult tasks of political negotiation in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That is a part and parcel of lawmaking. That, however, a self-defeating exercise, then taking the ordinance route may only raise suspicions about the government's motives and harden the opposition's stance towards a measure, as was seen in the case of proposed amendment to the land acquisition law. So repeatedly, যদি বাৰেপতি তোমালোকে মানে আমাৰ ordinance pass কৰি থকা হয় তেনেহলে এইটো কি কৰিব? It will raise suspicion about the government's motives and harden the opposition stance towards a measure, like we have seen in the case of land acquisition law. Then the executive's powers to issue ordinance therefore goes against the separation of power, for it acts neither as a check nor as a balance to the authority exercised by the other branches of governments. Then ordinance passed in the haste are often ill-designed, means it is passed in haste, means without taking proper time or without proper discussion, ordinance are passed in haste, and that will be just kind of vain, or you can say ill-designed. তাৰ পৰা যে ইমান সোনকালে সোনকালে পাছ কৰিলে যে কিবা ভালকৈ এনালাইচিছ হৈছে সেইটোতো দেখা পোৱা নাযায়, আৰু তাৰ পৰা নিগেটিভ ৰিজাল্টহে আহিবলৈ অহা দেখা পোৱা যায়. Then need for ordinance making, it ought to be power to legislate when parliament is not in session. So when legislature not in session, the president can only promulgate it when either of the house parliament is not in the session. মানে যেতিয়া parliament sessionত নাথাকে তেতিয়া presidente ordinance pass কৰিব পাৰে. Then immediate action is needed. The president thou has the power of promulgating the ordinances, but same cannot be done unless he certifies that there are circumstances that require him to take immediate action, right? Parliament should approve. After the ordinance has been passed, it is required to be approved by the parliament within 6 weeks of reassembling. The same will cease to operate if disapproved either houses. আমি হেতু কথা জানো সপ্তাহৰ ভিতৰত এটো হ'ব লাগিব, এটো এপ্ৰুভ কৰিব লাগিব, নহলে এটো সিজ হৈ যাব। দিস বাট যদি যিকোনো এখন হাউসেও ডিসএপ্ৰুভ কৰে তেতিয়াও এটো কি হ'ব? সিজ হৈ যাব। Then during emergency ordinance pass কৰা দেখা পোৱা যায়। And what will be the way forward? Even if there is a broad consensus on a certain legislative measure is needed, parliamentary scrutiny is valuable in or itself. So it is okay that sometimes ordinance making power is required, or you can say if there is a broad consensus that a certain legislative measure is needed, then but with respect to some parliamentary scrutiny, means proper parliamentary scrutiny should be there. Then reference to the standing committee and open debate about the merits of a bill and its drafting are likely to address shortcomings or oversights in the law. So whatever the ordinance being passed, there should be proper discussion on that in the standing committee. If it's a bill, then what will be its effect or how it will address the shortcoming, this should be discussed in standing committees. Then ordinances are not immune from judicial challenge. If required, judicial challenge can be made, and that is mentioned, that is indirectly means observed by Supreme Court in the Krishna Kumar Singh's versus State of Bihar case. Supreme Court made a series of pronouncements with potentially huge implications for the future of democratic governance in the country. Krishna Kumar Singh versus State of Bihar case. The case raised intricate constitutional questions concerning the executive's power to make law through ordinance. এই কেছটোত কৃষ্ণ কুমাৰ সিং ভাৰ্চেছ ষ্টেট অফ বিহাৰ কেছত অৰ্ডিনেন্সৰ মানে এক্সিষ্টেঞ্চৰ ওপৰত কুৱেশ্যন উঠোৱা হয় বা আমাৰ ডেমক্ৰেটিক গভাৰ্ণমেণ্ট থকা কাউণ্ট্ৰিত অৰ্ডিনেন্সৰ ওপৰত মানে ইয়াৰ এক্সিষ্টেঞ্চৰ ওপৰত কুৱেশ্যন উঠোৱা হয় যে এক্সিকিউটিভৰ পাৱাৰ থকাটো কিমান দূৰ মিনছ acceptable. So this case raised intricate constitutional questions concerning the executive powers to make law through ordinance. So how we can conclude that yes, ordinance is required, but to some extent when the parliament is not in the session, or sometimes it should in a situation where there should be an immediate action required, immediate action needed, then there will maybe no other option than ordinance, but that should be validated within 6 weeks. And that should not be promulgated, means it repromulgated if it is in not concerned to the current problem, and it can be dissolved also whenever it is required, right? Whenever it is required, in the sense that if any one of the committee is not agree with its its result. So that way we can say that ordinance is required. Ordinance can serve a purpose in certain exceptional circumstances, but that should not become a routine substitute for the legislative process. So that's why we conclude this question and conclude this session also. We'll meet in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.